podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello everyone and welcome back to your rival Recon here on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Harry Sethi, and what a pleasure, what a privilege it is this week to be talking to you about the league-leading Reds. Sunday afternoon saw Liverpool overcome a game Brighton side at Anfield, courtesy of goals from Diaz and Mo Salah, and a masterful performance from former Brighton man Alexis McAllister. Following a dour goalless draw between Arsenal and Manchester City later that afternoon, that left the Reds 2 points clear at the top of the table, with their destiny now firmly back in their hands. So with 9 games left to go, the Reds first turn their attention to Chris Wilder's relegation battling Sheffield Utd, who arrive at Anfield on Thursday evening. Joining me on the pod this week to discuss what's been a despondent season for Blades fans, we welcome back Hal Stewart from the Sheffield United Way YouTube channel. Welcome back, Hal. Good to speak with you again.
Here we are. I know it's only been, 4 months since we last chatted, and it feels like just yesterday Sheffield United were not winning a game of football. But, here we are talking about, I would imagine, much the same thing.
I was going to say, I was trying to think back to the previous game between the two sides, obviously right at the tail end, December last year. And we discussed on that podcast. I don't think Chris Wilder, or just before the game, obviously, I think there was still a discussion around whether or not Chris Wilder was going to be confirmed as the new manager following the sacking of Heckingbottom, and lo and behold, that is what came to pass. And as you say, the themes unfortunately haven't changed too much. And if the last pod was cathartic, I'm hoping this one's going to be somewhat cathartic as well. But I did want to ask you, I'm guessing your overarching thoughts haven't really changed too much since we last spoke, but we'll delve into sort of what you think, what you've thought about how the manager has tried to approach it and tried to approach things differently, if at all. But at this stage, I just wanted to get your, I suppose, temperature check on like where fans are at this stage in the season, already thinking about next season, how to rebuild and the key areas that need that investment. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think most are resigned to relegation. Maybe there'll be some slight excitement before the end of the season, a couple of results here and there that we don't expect. That's what football's all about, especially when you support a team like Sheffield United, that we don't have the resources to really compete properly at this level. That's been so evident this season. And really, it looks like that for the case with the 3 promoted teams. If you have the 3 promoted teams competing against everyone else without financial fair play coming into it, I really do think you'll just get the 3 that go up going straight back down again. And you might get that for the next few seasons until there is a bit more parity in some way, shape or form across the Premier League. And so for us, just hoping for a miracle, that's probably not going to happen. Or more realistically, B, yes, we get to the end of the season, we don't finish bottom, we let that be Burnley, we get a few good points here and there, and then we rebuild, exactly as you said, over the summer for hopefully a successful season under Chris Wilder next term.
It's been interesting speaking to, I think, each of the sides in and around you, as you've been talking about like this season, sort of the massive disparity in sort of resources and how that obviously inhibits people being competitive. And I think various points in the season, I think Luton have punched above their weight in terms of, I guess, just their approach to the games at times and how open they're willing to be. And that's thrown out some fun results for them. But ultimately they're still in a situation where they're fighting to try and get themselves out of that position. I think currently in 18th place. Burnley, when I've spoken to fans of theirs throughout this season, been somewhat dispirited about the fact that I guess companies just very strictly stuck to one style, one philosophy, even when it didn't seem to work very early on, and had led to sort of, I suppose, just sort of negative results. And it seems to be a bit of disillusionment there, but again, no expectation whatsoever that there's going to be any sacking there, and already thinking about how to rebuild next season. Sheffield United, when we spoke last time, just before Chris Wilder was appointed, yeah, I think we discussed a number of different things about why Sheffield United were in this position. You've mentioned one of them right there. You know, that disparity in terms of resources. Another thing that seems to have impacted all teams this season as well, and of course those teams that don't have the squads to cope with it have obviously been heavily impacted by it. But injuries, I was looking at your squad, and it looked as though, if I've counted right, that there's 7 players currently out injured. And I want to ask you before we get into the manager and talk about his approach, just how like much of a factor you think that has been this season in terms of just not being able to build any momentum. The fact that there have been those 7 injuries.
Every team gets injuries. I don't know if
Yeah,
we can. Liverpool have a lot of injuries, and if we
they
had the
do.
kind
Yeah.
of injuries that Liverpool had, your number one goalkeeper, Trent, Jones, Robertson, these are key players, and we'd be struggling as well. So Newcastle, they've had tremendous injuries. You
Hmm.
know, going into the season, you're going to have to use your whole squad. And we've got a very, very thin squad. And you really see, I'm not putting so much stock into the injuries. I'm putting a lot of stock into the way that we play football. We
Okay.
play football without the ball. We have roughly 26% possession in games. So the opposition are doing this neat 1-2 touch passing, not moving too much, and keeping the ball. And our players are chasing. And by the hour mark, no matter how fit they are, naturally, any
Exhausted.
human,
Yeah.
they're exhausted. And then we don't have the squad depth when the games are now not going to 90 minutes, they're going to 100 plus in some cases. We don't have the squad to bring players on like the teams we're playing against to change the game with that fresh legs. We don't have that. We've got such the squad. If you look at it, there's players on the bench at some games. We've gone, who's that? And we've all genuinely had to look up and go, oh, it's a young 17-year-old, 16-year-old Lithuanian that we've never heard of. And we have to be realistic. We do not have enough players when the going gets tough. And the tough, it really does get going in the Premier League. We have found that to our cost, and we've not been able to retain leads, largely because we are just chasing shadows for so much. And I would love, aesthetically, I'd love to see Sheffield United keep
Mm.
the football.
No, as you say, I think I mean, well known at this stage, but yeah, of course, not having the football, you can be the most, as you say, diligent defensively, and the most well organized. And I can imagine since Chris Wilder's come in, has been really hammering those kind of themes in terms of what the side needs to try and like save themselves. But as you say, there is a limit to what's physically possible to actually maintain that style. And if you've not got the reinforcements to switch one out, switch one in. As you say, it's especially with the quality you're up against, it's incredibly difficult to do that. And I remember when we spoke, a bit of regret, obviously, that Heckingbottom was being sacked, lost 11 out of the opening 14 games. So understandable sort of why that decision was made, of course, but like still sad to see him go based upon the work that he'd done. And we spoke about Wilder as being the obvious choice to come in. And I wanted to get your view. I think you were fairly trying to remember how positive you were about it at the time, or whether or not you just thought you were slightly worried about him tarnishing his previous legacy at the club. But I just wanted to get your thoughts. What was the fan reaction to that return of Chris Wilder? And then would love to get your thoughts on how you think he's tried to approach changing things around. Obviously, been proved very difficult.
Yeah, at the time when we spoke, I didn't really see the point in sacking Heckingbottom. I thought if we did,
Yeah.
we were already bottom, and I thought in maybe 3-4 months' time we'd still be bottom. We are. I think there's been a slight upturn in performance with Chris Wilder. He's come in, we're playing a bit better in some matches. We actually played well in that game against Liverpool.
You did, yeah.
We still lost, and that's been much the story under Chris Wilder. Wolves away, we played really, really well. We were the better team. Any neutral watching that would say Sheffield United deserved to beat Wolves away. We lost. Luton away, that was a really good day at the office for our boys. We did our best to throw it away with some bizarre decisions, some bizarre VAR decisions. Bournemouth, we had the lead, we threw that away. Fulham, our last game, we had the lead, we threw that away. it's hard to draw any real conclusions since Wilder's come in for Heckingbottom because, like I said, we were bottom then, we're bottom now. Wilder talks a better game. I like listening to Wilder in his pressers. He is the fans. He says what we're thinking and he doesn't sugarcoat it. And I like that. And I'd imagine in the dressing room, he's the kind of manager that can really G you up and get you going. And actually, that's probably why we start games quite well. You watched our recent matches. We've often come out of the traps looking for Sheffield United anyway, quite good. Crystal Palace away, for example, we were really good. Even Brighton, I know we got absolutely destroyed both in the cup and the league. If you watch the games, we didn't start too badly in any of those games, but it's easily forgotten because starting well for 5 minutes and then playing poorly for 85, you do often forget the first few. It doesn't really matter, but it sort of says to me that he motivationally is very, very good. And I think Chris Wilder is. He's the kind of guy that, to use an all sort of old cliche, he's the guy you want to go over the trenches for. And in terms of that, I think he has the upper hand motivationally over Paul Heckingbottom. What we haven't seen is Paul Heckingbottom really didn't get much of an opportunity to spend money. And the players he had brought in have been very hit and miss. Chris Wilder over the previous time and this time, we'll see, because his track record of bringing players in has been mixed at best. And he's had some real successes, some of the most successful successes in signing in Sheffield United's history. And he's signed some real duds as well. And we're going to just have to see what the summer presents, because the summer will be, in my opinion, Sheffield United's biggest transfer window in the last maybe 10, 20 years.
You mentioned there sort of his record in the transfer window. Of the players, were there players that came in the January window? I'm just looking here on my screen, and obviously one name that shouts out is Ben Brereton Diaz, who I know was obviously featured recently in a big role in the last game that we were just speaking about. But in terms of the signings that have come in, it looks like modest business. Ivo Grebic, goalkeeper from Atletico, who's come in. Brereton Diaz, I just mentioned, on loan from Villarreal. And was it Holgate from Everton as well?
Yeah, Mason Holgate, who Chris Wilder's been chasing forever. And in fact, even Paul Heckingbottom wanted to bring in Mason Holgate, which perhaps has surprised some Sheffield United fans. He got sent off for a ridiculous challenge against Brighton and hasn't really...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you might remember that one. He hasn't really turned it on. But, Gerbic, who you mentioned, he's conceded 19 goals in 6 games.
Hello there. Have you ever found yourself getting ready to watch the Liverpool match? You've got your mates round, you've got your drinks, you've got your snacks, you're all set to go. It's going to be a good day. And then you find out, oh, the game's not actually being broadcast in your region. There's the heartbreak, there's rage, there's despair, there's fury. You're upset. You're looking for a solution. Well, we've teamed up with NordVPN to bring you a game-changing solution. That's right. With NordVPN, you can switch your virtual location to a country where the game's on live. It's like having a global ticket to sports, TV shows, and movies from all around the world. And here's the best part. If you go to nordvpn.com/Anfield Index, you'll score the best discount on your NordVPN plan. Plus, our link gives you 4 extra months free on the 2-year plan. And that's what we call a winning streak. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking, what if it's not for me? What if I don't like it? What if I'm not getting the use of it? Don't worry about it. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's totally risk-free. I've been using NordVPN to catch all the Liverpool matches and TV shows that I'd normally miss out on. It's totally transformed both my weekends and my TV watching. And not only that, not only does it give me access to stuff from all around the world with the click of a button, it keeps all my data safe. It means that the miscreants, the ne'er-do-wells, what my grandmother would have called scallywags, who lurk on the internet to try and steal your information, can't get your information. NordVPN keeps it safe for you. So don't let geo-restrictions bench you this season. Visit nordvpn.com/Anfield Index and make sure that you're in the game, no matter when or where it's being played. Remember, it's not just sports, it's your all-access pass to binge-worthy TV shows and blockbuster movies from all around the globe. NordVPN literally unlocks the world for you and keeps you safe from the world. So don't miss out. Head over to nordvpn.com/Anfield Index and let the fun and games begin.
It's not, we're not going to do much for the confidence of
No.
That guy. And you mentioned there, I think probably things that we're familiar with when it comes to Chris Wilder around the man management, the getting players to buy into sort of that collective ethos. You mentioned some of the good starts, clearly G'd up. As far as it's possible for him to have done something different, has he tried to do something or anything differently tactically that has shocked you whatsoever, or has it been sort of what you suppose were used to previously to an extent with Wilder?
It's a good question, actually, because Wilder implemented the sort of overlapping centre backs and we call it a 3-5-2, but it isn't. But let's just call it a 3-5-2 because we don't want to get too Football Manager detailed on this. 3-5-2 is what Wilder was famous for under Sheffield United in his first spell. And he stuck to that rigidly, often to his detriment, particularly in that last season when he resigned. Then he's come back in and he's gone to a flat back four. And we're all like, wow, we didn't see that coming. But this is the new Chris Wilder. This is the Chris Wilder that will bring in players who aren't from Yorkshire. Never mind. It's just players who are from abroad under Chris Wilder. I mean, that's just unheard of. And now he's changed the formation. Well, he's actually gone back now. He sort of experimented with this back four. And now we've gone back to very similar what we've seen before under Wilder. And it's probably really because we have the players already for that system. And we've been playing that system through right down to sort of under threes. Right throughout, we've been playing that 3-5-2. It probably makes sense to stick with that. He's mixed it up a little bit in our championship seasons. He'd often play an attacking midfielder behind a front two. You probably can't get away with that away from home, certainly in the Premier League. But tactically, he's tried a few different things. In games, he's got a plan B now, which is really exciting to see. We probably actually look better away from home under Chris Wilder. He's started to get the best out of Jayden Bogle, which is great to see. Big question marks over Jayden Bogle's future. I mean, hopefully the club just extends his contract, but we'd like to have had that said months ago that that's definitely going to happen because he's such an exciting young right wing back. And we've also got George Baldock out for 6 weeks, who would be the other player that could play there. And Gorgeous George is probably Furious George, give him his other nickname, is probably one of our best players. So having him out is a huge blow. But Wilder's trying to implement some different things tactically. And like I say, it's been much of a muchness, but there are certainly moments in games when you go, yes, I can see exactly what we're trying to do here.
And to those moments, I mean, if I ask you to point those out in terms of sort of the fixtures that he's managed since coming into the club again, what have been those moments? What have been those games where you think, okay, there's glimpses here of actually this is what it looks like when everything clicks in terms of what he's looking to achieve with Sheffield United?
I think the match I mentioned a little earlier, Wolves away, when he started with Ryan Brewster, who Liverpool fans will be familiar with.
Yes, yeah.
Threw him in. We weren't expecting him to. And you know what? It really worked. And Ryan caused that Wolves defence all sorts of problems. And the way they were playing the ball over the top, in behind, you thought, this is going to work. This is what Ryan's been crying out for. And then Ryan being Ryan got injured before the Arsenal game and went and lost 6-0. And that has been the story of the season. And we saw Luton away a complete performance, apart from a couple of moments where it's usually set pieces. We look so susceptible, particularly at corners, even against Fulham at the weekend. One of the easiest headers you'll ever see gets Fulham back into it. But at Luton, we did, apart from that, see that burst of attacking intent. We are so good on the break. Palace as well, really early on, so good on the break. Aston Villa away, good on the break. We have pace in the team, but we hadn't always seen it. Under Wilder, we are seeing it. And whilst we don't always agree with his team selection, there are certain players that Blades fans will be saying, why are you not playing him? I mean, fans will always do that with every single fan of every club. Will think certain players should be playing. But he has been dealt a few injury hands, as you mentioned earlier. And again, I try not to make too many excuses for that because whilst Cameron Archer is out, we've got lots of other options up front. But I would like to have seen Cameron Archer not get injured and to have played regularly because he's a live wire. He's someone that I think alongside James McAtee, who again, Wilder's getting the best out of, can cause problems and give oppositions just a few extra things to think about.
Who are those outlets on the counter that you were talking about there in terms of sort of the pace that you possess that's actually made you sort of quite effective on the counter?
Well, as I just mentioned, Cameron Archer, when
Cameron Archer, yeah.
when he's fit, he's got wheels for feet. Obviously, we love just mentioning when he's fit, Rhian Brewster, but it's his birthday the day that we're recording this today, and maybe the fact that his birthday's on April Fool's makes a lot of sense for how his career's panned out. Because I really feel for that lads. Ben Brereton Diaz, good at both assisting and finishing. James McAtee, who I've mentioned, Oliver Arblaster, very young, exciting Sheffield United fan through and through. He can make things happen. Gustavo Hamer or Harmer, no one seems to be confident on how to say that. He's got something in his locker. Our fastest player is possibly Yasser Larousi, the fullback. You might see moments from him if he gets involved in the game. Bogle as well. You know, he's no slouch. And even at the back, Austin Trusty, probably one of our quickest defenders, but he's having a horrible run of form. So we've got a bit of pace in the side, but under Heckingbottom and the way we played, we didn't always see it.
Yeah, no, and just thinking there, in terms of transitions, actually, sort of there being moments where there'll likely be some, 1v1 situations or sort of like Virgil or whoever's partnering him sort of dealing with those counterattacks. And yeah, I mean, pacey counters have proved an issue, I think, this season on occasion. And I want to talk about maybe before we started to see those moves be implemented by the manager, as we talked about the game that we were previewing, obviously the game late in December, actually early in December last year. I think it was a Van Dijk goal from a set piece, if I remember correctly, and then a very, very late goal from Szoboszlai just to wrap it up. But like it was quite a nervy one, if I remember actually watching it rightly. And I think it just epitomized what you talked about in terms of sort of the level of effort that I had no doubt we were going to see, given sort of Wilder just come in. That was the first, I believe it was like the first Premier League game he'd managed. Maybe I'm incorrect on that, but just cast your mind back to that game and what you saw in that game, and yeah, pull out any themes that you think are worth mentioning.
Yeah, Wilder, of course, had managed Sheffield United in the Premier League before.
Yeah, okay. Oh no, I meant since his return. Sorry.
Yeah, that was his first one since his return. That was his first game, absolutely right. That game, I think, summed it all up, didn't it? You said there was a few nervy moments, but I think as Sheffield United fans, we possibly felt like the first goal, I felt like there was a foul. I think it was Ahmed Hodzic. I can't quite remember. Again, it's so many games since then, they all kind of blur into one, especially when you're not winning regularly. You tend not to take as much of an interest. I'm not really watching any other football. I don't really know what else is going on in the Premier League. I'm focused purely on Sheffield United, and it's been tough. It's been hard. So I've not watched that game again since it was on, and that's it. What I do know is the season has been summed up very much in that game, because we had moments, but we couldn't take them, and that has been the story. We have struggled to create chances and to take them. We've only scored 27 goals all season. That's the lowest in the league, and that's the same amount as Liverpool have conceded. And I think that sums up both of our seasons. Yeah,
no, I think there's been quite a few of those kind of stats flying around, actually. I'm saving a few of them for the Merseyside derby. I've taken hold of, I have to admit, but I'm gonna hold on to those for now. And I want to ask you, thinking ahead, I'm not going to talk about the sandwich thing, but I think it's just like way too easy for me to.
Whoa! I mean, look, Sheffield United fans know, and they'll be listening to this, that I'm Mr. Sandwich.
Okay.
I have a GIF out there that someone created of me eating a sandwich after a Sheffield United win. People come up to me and ask me what's in my sandwiches, so I'm more than happy. In fact, I'd rather talk about sandwiches than football.
Okay. Let's dive a little bit then to talk about the sandwich. I just saw I actually hadn't realised. Chris Wilder's obviously fined nearly £12,000 for having the audacity to have a go at, I think it was a third official eating a sandwich as he was speaking to him about something in the Palace game, wasn't it? Obviously, the way in which the internet works, especially the corners of the internet where football fans, versions of football fans tend to congregate, it was immediately going to become a bit of an online sort of meme or whatever it is. But feel free to talk to me about sandwiches. Feel free to talk to me about, how much fans cared, if at all, about this. It just sounds like quite a Chris Wilder encounter to me.
Yeah, it's quite a Chris Wilder encounter. And do you know what? I think I kind of side with the fourth official here. Imagine you'd just done your job
Yeah,
seemingly fairly well. Third or fourth official, I can't remember
just
who
trying to
it
get a
was.
snack. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you probably haven't eaten for 8 hours because you have to get to the ground so early. You're finally going to be able to eat something. You shouldn't necessarily have to stop because someone bursts in and is going to tell you what a bad job you've done. I'd probably go, do you know what? I'll listen to this, but I'm going to keep eating this sandwich and then I will respond. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but if I'd been eating a sandwich, I'd probably have carried on as well. But Chris Wilder has sort of said, he was asked on Match of the Day, you might have seen that he's not prepared to give his hard-earned money to the Football Association or the Premier League, so he won't comment on controversial decisions anymore. And that's based on the amount that he was fined, which is quite a lot, certainly for mere mortals like me. That'd be quite a lot of money. But he was asked about the 14 minutes added on at the end of the Fulham match, and he said he won't comment on that. And that's because he doesn't want to get fined. And actually, the reason that amount of time was added on is because Bernd Leno, the Fulham goalkeeper, was potentially fighting in the goal mouth with some of the Sheffield United players, and VAR looked at it for absolutely ages. Now that's nothing that Sheffield United have done, and it ended up costing us. And that's just one example of a very recent VAR that's gone against us. There was another one in that very game, the Fulham game, where Bassi pushed his thumb into the Adam's apple of Gus Hamer, or Hamer, never know how you say it. But VAR looked at it for a few seconds. For me, that was a red card. And it's just, if we're going to have VAR, and I hate it, I think it's got to be all or nothing. And VAR does seem to be, and this is why Wilder's asked about these things, does seem to be very inconsistent. And when you are a team down there, you're only going to get maybe 3 or 4 chances a game. So every single decision needs to be right. But I much prefer the old days when it was just usually one, maybe a couple of people's incompetence rather than many more people getting it wrong. And I think you only need to look at the penalty we given against us at Luton away, where Vinicius Souza is jumping. The ball is behind him. He doesn't know where the ball is. And it's headed down away from goal and it hits him on the back of his hand, which he has on the back of his head because he's been hit on his head. And the ball isn't even going towards goal. That was given as a penalty. And you think, that isn't the game we all fell in love with. That no one had even stopped play, and it's minutes later before it's brought back, and you just think that this isn't football. And if you're in the ground, you haven't got a clue what's happening. And I don't blame Chris Wilder at all for coming out sometimes and wanting to speak about it, but he shouldn't be fearful of being fined huge sums of money. Although in the sandwich one, I think that one was I'd probably go slightly with the official there who was enjoying his much deserved sandwich after it's not easy officiating at the top flight.
Exactly. You got to keep got to get that nutrition in. And
Got it.
I think, I'd pay good money to see Chris Wilder recite from the, I prefer not to speak hymn sheet, just word for word, verbatim Mourinho. I'd pay great money to see that, to be honest, especially in the accent. Yeah, he's not likely to do that. And I think when it comes to VAR and the lack of consistency, I think you're preaching to the converted here. Certainly this season, we're not going to do a hard luck story by any stretch of the imagination, but having a goal ruled out incorrectly in the way in which it was against Spurs, and then a number of other occasions. But I think the one that particularly sticks in my craw was the McAllister being kicked in the chest, which was when it was attempted to be explained by Howard Webb and that referees show that they have now, obviously talking about how they both come in high. And still struggling to understand how that necessarily works with one player being kicked in the chest. I don't understand quite how that makes sense. Again, I'm happy to let it go in the past, but I find it remarkable, as you say. Then you see some other decisions around things that are given as penalties, like the one you've just described there, where the player's got a hand on his head, and I think the Mudryk one this past weekend, where it's just minimal contact. Yeah, it does feel as though if it's going to be a part of the game, I'd quite like it to be an independent body that does that work. I'd really like it to be removed.
Well, I think I've told you this. I live in Cyprus and I watch a lot of Cypriot football, and VAR is used so sparingly in Cyprus. It's really, really refreshing.
Is it an independent body separate from the official?
I think it's the CFA, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
And I only occasionally go to the top flight. I'm much more interested in the lower leagues because there's no VAR.
Okay.
And it's raw football. But when I do watch the top flight, and I've probably been to maybe 30 games since I've been here, I can't remember a controversial VAR at a game I've been to. It's sometimes over goals, and you maybe have a little delay. But in game, it's been very rare. Now, I'm sure there's people listening who know a lot more about Cypriot football than me that will say,
They're furious.
"Oh, it's been a disaster, VAR. What are you talking about?" But I'm comparing it to Sheffield United, right?
Yeah.
who get so we have not had a game without some nonsense, and that's since VAR first came in, and we've only been in the league 3 of those seasons. So no, we've had enough, and we can't wait. It's the only good thing about going down to the Championship. Maybe there's a few. We'll win a few more games. It's an exciting league. You get more value for money because there's 46 games, and there's no VAR.
I swear I thought I'd seen a post that it was set to be introduced. Maybe not this season.
Don't tell me that.
However, it is also April 1st, so I need to be very careful about it. It does sound like a bit of content that's perfectly designed.
Yeah, look, I've already fallen.
I've
I've already fallen for one April Fool's today. I'm not falling for another. Please let that never be the case.
That wasn't my intention there, but actually now I've realized that I might have been caught up in that as well. But moving on to that, I suppose we spoke about right at the start of the pod in terms of thinking about next season. You've already said there that the transfer window feels like it's one of the biggest like in the club's recent history. You're given the purse strings, however much money there is to spend in terms of, like, I hate that phrase, the war chest, but just let's run with it. What are the areas where you think, okay, this is where we need to prioritize, we need to invest in these areas to really give ourselves the best chance of having a successful season next time round? And where do you think Chris Wilder will be prioritizing, especially now that he, as you said, is not limiting himself to players from Yorkshire?
Yeah, the war chest, maybe the war purse, the war thimble.
Purse.
Yeah,
War
I don't know.
thimble.
Whatever
Yeah.
the smallest thing is, we're not going to have a lot of money unless there's a takeover. If I'm looking at my crystal ball and trying to work out areas that we need to improve, we need a centre back. I think we have to be realistic and say that Anel Ahmedhodzic will leave. Not too many fans would have wanted that going into this season. Now we'd probably be okay with it. He could play right side of centre back. He can play centre back. He's at the moment you've got Mason Holgate generally playing right side of centre back and Anel in the middle. Either or. I think both of those positions will need improving. So centre back and right sided centre back. We will also definitely need.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
Sports Social Podcast Network.